2019. As the humanitarian situation in Venezuela worsens, its citizens are fleeing to neighboring countries. We'll have an update from Trinidad and Tobago on the crisis. And regional security system investigators arrive in Guyana. What does this mean for the investigation into the murders of Joel Henry, Isaiah Henry, and Harish Singh? President of the Brooklyn-based Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy, Rickford Burke, joins us to discuss this latest development. The CXC is now saying they will conduct an independent review of the CAPE and CSEC results. And St. Kitts and Nevis will begin reopening next month. We'll have more on why the CDC says the Twin Islands are among the safest destinations worldwide.
This is the Caribbean Times News with Alisha Davis.
I'm Alisha Davis in New York. Thanks for being with us. We begin with our headline story. Antigua and Barbuda is kicking off a multi-million-dollar energy initiative with the construction of a hurricane-resistant clean energy plant. The project is intended to help the country recover from the devastating effects of Hurricane Irma in 2017 and to help the nation realize its sustainable development goals. The United Arab Emirates Caribbean Renewal Energy Partnership Fund aims to establish projects in 16 Caribbean countries with clean energy products in the Bahamas, Barbados, and St. Vincent and Grenadines also already underway. Now to Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley calling for a restructuring of the global financial system. In her address, she urged the Pan American Health Organization to continue its efforts to assist small developing countries like those in the Caribbean to help them deal with the impact of the coronavirus pandemic.
The global financial system must be restructured and indeed revolutionized and democratized. Only in this way can vulnerable subregions like our own Caribbean community escape the prison of the false per capita based middle income categorization, which is blocking us from receiving much needed financial aid while penalizing our efforts at creating sustainable national economies.
Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago is canceled due to the pandemic. Now all eyes are turning to the country's finance minister as he prepares to present the national budget next week. Our reporter Jesse Ramdio is standing by with all the details.
Hello, Alisha, and good day to everyone tuned in to this broadcast. Well, as you mentioned, the countdown is officially on to Finance Minister Imbe's much anticipated national budget presentation, which will be read in Parliament next Monday. Now, a lot depends on the measures announced and policies outlined, as they'll definitely determine how the country weathers the turbulent economic times caused by the global energy fallout and, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. So there's a lot at stake. And I want to stick a pin here for just a moment, Alisha. As just yesterday, during a pre-budget consultation, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, well, he announced that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, Carnival 2021 has been cancelled. Now, that's big news for us here in Trinidad and Tobago. It's because Carnival, our country relies heavily on tourism, particularly Carnival, to generate a lot of foreign exchange, and tourism really is one of the lifelines to the country's economy. So with that announcement, there's a lot of concern, a lot of apprehension in the atmosphere as to what's going to take place for the economy, at least in the next couple months. Now, TNT's Carnival is the latest casualty. Carnival, of course, being one of the largest celebrated events here in TNT. Now, dialing back to the upcoming budget, just at that forum yesterday, the finance minister, he announced that come in the budget on Monday, there will be no announcement of a devaluation of the TNT dollar. Now, there was a lot of speculation about whether or not the finance minister would devalue the TNT dollar. According to him, if the dollar is reduced, it will result, of course, in inflation from 1% to anywhere in the margin of 6 to 7%. And that can immediately reduce the standard of living in the country. Now, he also put to rest rumors that the country was unable to borrow money because of its economic status, saying that, since coming into government, the PNM government, they had been successful in 2 borrowing initiatives. Now, what's on citizens' wish list for the budget, Alisha, in case you're probably wondering? Well, I can tell you many are hoping for no announcement of any new taxes. They're also optimistic that government will reveal plans to consolidate a weakening economy. And that, of course, will include ways on ensuring job security, creating employment, as well as food security and reducing the country's food import bill. All eyes will also be on whether or not the government reduces the fuel subsidy. That's been a contentious point for some time. So there's a lot at stake, a lot that's going to be looked at closely come Monday. Now, the theme of last year's budget, Alisha, was stability, strength, and growth. The finance minister had announced an estimated revenue of $47.7 billion and a total expenditure of $53 billion, resulting in a deficit of $5.2 billion. Last year's budget was predicated on a projected oil price of US $60 per barrel and a gas price of $3 per MMBTU. Those figures, of course, were later revised in the mid-year budget review, which was read in Parliament back in March. And, a lot of the revision to the figures came as a result of the fallout in the global energy industry, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic. In the last couple of months, we've seen government announce that because of the pandemic and because of some of the immediate measures that had to have been implemented to assist those impacted, there was a $10 billion hole drilled in our economy. So come Monday, Alisha, a lot's going to be on the line. A lot of citizens are going to be keenly looking at what's going to be announced in the budget. We were accustomed as citizens to budgets of goodies. We used to say that we were expecting goodie packages in our budget, but we aren't really going to be anticipating any sort of, goodies this time around because of the current economic climate. So that's where we are at this point in time as it pertains to the upcoming budget. Lots to look forward to. The pre-budget consultations, the pre-budget forum, they're already taking place. Many throughout various sectors have already started to weigh in on their expectations. They're hoping that, government really adopts certain policies and measures that can, again, as I mentioned before, consolidate an already weakening economy.
Well, we will be watching next week. Thank you, Jesse. And now we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Jesse's going to give us the latest on the Venezuelans who were detained in Trinidad. That is just ahead. Stay with us.
Mac Shack, New York, dedicated to providing a unique dining experience by offering classic, seasonal, and modern creative macaroni and cheese flavors. Find their locations at MacShackNewYork.com. That's MacShackNY.com.
Since the coronavirus, global travel seems risky, but with Promo Caribbean, you don't have to worry. Our COVID-19 alerts feature, coupled with our comprehensive travel guide featuring over 20 countries, contains all you need to keep updated and safe during the pandemic. Whether it's Belize, Barbados, Haiti, or Guyana, our travel guide has all you need from safe places to eat, transport options, pharmacies, embassies, hotels, and Airbnbs. Not feeling well? You could take the COVID self-assessment test on our app. If you happen to be in the Caribbean or are looking to travel during these uncertain times, then Promo Caribbean is going to be your best friend. Today more than ever, you need to stay informed and stay safe. With Promo Caribbean, you don't have to worry. We've got you. Download the app from the App Store or Play Store now.
Welcome back to Caribbean Times News. And the Venezuelans detained in Trinidad and Tobago. Police in Trinidad and Tobago say that they have detained 13 people from Venezuela for illegally entering the country over the weekend. Our reporter Jesse Ramdeo joins us again from Trinidad with more. Jesse, this increase is a combination of factors, correct?
Yeah, Alicia, yes, that's correct. We've seen that because of the COVID-19 pandemic of recent, there's been an influx of Venezuelan migrants breaching the country's borders and making their way into the island. Now, just over a year ago, our National Security Minister, Minister Stuart Young, he had put in place a Venezuelan migrant refugee policy whereby Venezuelans were given at least a one-year amnesty. They were given the opportunity to register as legal citizens, as legal nationals of Trinidad and Tobago for a period of just 1 year. And after that period, they would have been subject to having their permits possibly extended because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen that process has gone on automatically. Now, as mentioned before, because of worsening socioeconomic conditions in Venezuela, coupled with the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of Venezuelan migrants have been making their way to Trinidad and Tobago. Many, as mentioned before, crossing the borders via pirogues through the southwestern peninsula mainly, and making their way inland. It's been a cause of major concern for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, as it particularly relates to a matter of national security. We've seen that because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent spike, questions have arisen as to whether or not that spike is as a result of migrants breaching the country's borders. So measures are being put in place to really strengthen border protection. Law enforcement have been ramping up their efforts to apprehend people who have not migrants who have not registered, who have not been registered in the country over the last year. So it's something that the authorities have been working on. A lot of focus has been placed on trying to mitigate the gaps that exist currently in our systems, which allow for migrants to be breaching the borders. The latest incident on over the weekend, it's nothing new particularly. Almost every weekend, almost every day, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, they make announcements as it pertains to the apprehension of Venezuelan nationals who are not registered in the country. Now, after being apprehended, we understand that the nationals are taken to the immigration detention center, where their documents are processed and they're eventually deported back to Venezuela, right? So, Alisha, there's a lot going on as it pertains to our border protection, trying to, mitigate, as mentioned before, the constant breaching of our borders, and as well as measures to safeguard nationals here at home, prevent the spread of COVID-19, as well as other security issues that might arise as a result of the influx of migrants.
That's such a complicated issue, Jesse. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll be right back with more. And welcome back to Caribbean Times News. It's been almost 1 month since the brutal murders of 3 young Guyanese men, Joel Henry, Isaiah Henry, and Harish Singh. Well, now regional security system investigators have arrived in the country. Earlier today, we spoke with Rickford Burke, the president of the Brooklyn-based Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy, and one of the first to call for international investigators about this latest development and what it means for the case.
As for my organization, we don't have any confidence in the Guyana Police Force. We are a bit skeptical as well of this CARICOM arrangement. We saw what CARICOM did for the recount of the votes in Guyana. They were biased. It was based on some sort of personal friendship between Mr. Jagdev and some of the CARICOM heads. We don't know if the same thing obtains in this situation. There's no disclosure. The government has not met with the family, or the police force hasn't met with the family to discuss this issue. We want to know why forensic experts were not brought in from, for instance, London or the FBI. The United States Secretary of State visited Guyana, had a press conference, held discussions with the president. They did not ask for FBI assistance. We're a bit suspicious of that. If the FBI comes into Guyana, they normally do a very thorough job. Maybe the government is kind of scared or something that the FBI might discover some things that the people of Guyana would be shocked to hear. These murders were heinous murders. We're of the opinion, based on our intelligence, that they were committed by PPP supporters. The government seemed to be more focused on bogus allegations with regard to the elections results, rather than trying to affect the outcome by damaging the witnesses and charging them with criminal offenses, rather than focus on this crime, which is a priority.
Now, are you concerned that given that almost a month has passed, that the longer this goes on, the more difficult this is going to be to solve?
I don't believe this case is going to be solved. I'll be shocked if it is. We know that these bodies were found at a place that was the secondary crime scene. There was no blood, there was no disturbance of the environment where these, obviously, as someone trained in criminal justice myself, that tells me that that was not the primary crime scene. These young men were killed somewhere else and brought there. The police has now admitted that. The environmental elements, as I've said before, would have degraded or completely destroyed any scientific evidence. Shoe prints, tire prints, fingerprints, footprints, DNA, hair, and fiber evidence. I'm not sure that there are any forensic experts attached to this RSS team that arrived in Guyana that is headed by an assistant police commissioner. We don't even know who these members are. What countries are they from? During the Recom CARICOM Center team, that included the deputy chief elections officer of St. Vincent, who under testimony in court, on the oath, admitted that he was involved in fraud in the St. Vincent elections. Now they're bringing people again under the cloud of secrecy to help investigate this matter without disclosing anything about these people to the public. The crime chief came out before a comprehensive investigation was done and claimed that there's no political motive in this killing. We don't know how he arrived at that. It seems as though he's driven by politics. He seemed to be a puppet of the political party, the ruling political party, the PPP. We have absolutely no confidence in the crime chief. We have no confidence in the police force to investigate these matters. Why? Because they seem to be taking instructions from the government rather than following the evidence and allow the evidence to guide their investigation. They arrested about 7 persons and they released all of them. Obviously, they're just going by, I guess, guesswork or something. We don't know what is leading this investigation. I understand that investigators play their cards close to their vest because they don't want to tip off perpetrators, but there's some measure of public disclosure that needs to happen in this case so that the people can have confidence. We don't have.
Now, let me ask you this. I don't mean to cut in, but let me ask you this. Are you saying that you think that these investigators coming in, you think that this is more of a political show?
I think it's a political show. We don't know what value they bring to this investigation. We don't know what particular expertise and skill sets each investigator has. This case is going to be solved by science. And we thought that initially, quickly, the government would have brought in forensic experts, a forensic pathologist from the international community, from the FBI. The FBI has the best crime lab in the world. Why isn't the FBI involved in this case? We don't know. Again, to me, this matters. These crimes seem to be centrally directed. You have a young man at Craig on the East Bank in Region 4 whose throat was slashed. You have one in Region 6 in Albion whose throat was slashed. You have these 2 Henry boys whose throats were slashed. It seems as though somebody inspired these perpetrators to slash the throats of Afro-Guyanese.
Yeah, there's no question that these were absolutely heinous crimes, and we certainly hope that we can see justice in this case, especially for the families. And that was Rickford Burke, president of the Brooklyn-based Caribbean Guyana Institute for Democracy. Coming up after the break, CXC announces an independent review of the 2020 test results. And St. Kitts and Nevis is named one of the safest travel destinations in the world. Stay with us. And welcome back to Caribbean Times News and another story that we have been following closely, the outrage and protest over the CXC 2020 results. Well, with mounting pressure from students, parents, and education ministries from around the Caribbean, the CXC is now announcing that they will conduct an independent review of the CAPE and CSEC results. And finally, in tonight's Caribbean Moment by Caribbean Journal, good news for snowbirds. Just in time for fall and winter escapes, the island of St. Kitts and Nevis will begin reopening in October. And the CDC has improved their COVID-19 risk assessment level to very low, making St. Kitts and Nevis among the safest destinations worldwide for travel right now. St. Kitts and Nevis is one of only 10 Caribbean countries with a very low CDC classification. And that does it for this edition of Caribbean Times News. To all of our viewers across the Caribbean and around the world,